The credit card statement lay open on my kitchen table, a quiet betrayal inked in numbers. $17,000? My name is Martha Langston. I'm 62 years old, a retired elementary school teacher and a widow. My husband, Gerald, passed away 4 years ago from pancreatic cancer. Since then, I've lived alone in the house we bought together in our 30s, trying to preserve a sense of normalcy in a world that no longer felt familiar. 3 years ago, I added my daughter Haley to my credit card. Just for emergencies, I'd said, wanting her to feel safe as she built her life. She was always the dramatic one, always running a little behind, always turning minor crises into code reds. I thought I was helping. I thought I was being a good mother. Now, the statement sat in front of me, page after page of wedding charges, florists, catering deposits, a luxury venue I had never heard of. Enchanted Valley Floral, $3,200. Silvercrest Banquet Hall, $8,500. Maison Rouge Catering, $4,800. I hadn't been asked. I hadn't even been informed. I'd simply been billed. Haley was getting married in 6 weeks, and apparently I was paying for it. I ran my fingers over the numbers, each one stinging like a paper cut. I wasn't angry at first. Just stunned. The way you feel when you realize the call has been coming from inside the house? This wasn't identity theft. This was something worse. It was entitlement wrapped in love. And as I sat there, the morning sun slanting through the blinds, warming the wood grain of the kitchen island Gerald installed for our 20th anniversary, I realized something deeply painful. Love, in my family, had a price tag, and I'd been footing the bill for far too long. I didn't get much time to process the shock before I heard the front door slam. "Mom, I need to borrow your car tonight," came Travis's voice from the hallway. My son, 34, recently divorced, had moved back in 6 months ago. Just for a little while, he'd said. I should have known better. Travis had a way of turning temporary situations into permanent arrangements. Since moving in, he hadn't contributed a dime to the bills, let alone lifted a finger around the house. He didn't come into the kitchen. Just shouted his needs like a roommate who assumed I was the building manager. "We're going to look at that apartment in Oak Ridge," he added. "Tasha's meeting me there." Tasha. The yoga instructor girlfriend who spent more time in my living room than I did. She meditated in the mornings, leaving incense and crystals scattered everywhere. I'd once mentioned that the smoke gave me headaches. Travis said I was being negative. "Unwelcoming. You need to open yourself up, Mom," he told me, like I was the problem in my own home. "Travis," I said, keeping my voice level, "can you come here, please?" He shuffled into the kitchen, already annoyed, phone in hand, wearing the jeans I'd bought him last Christmas. "What's up? I'm in a rush." I slid the credit card statement toward him. "Did you know about this?" His eyes barely glanced at it, then the shrug. "Yeah, Haley mentioned it. Look, Mom, it's just money. You've got a house, a pension. You're fine." That was the moment. The exact second I realized my children no longer saw me as a person. To them, I was a safety net with a credit limit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those numbers: 3,000 for flowers, 8,000 for a venue, nearly 5 for food. I thought of Gerald. He would have been furious, not just at the spending, but at the audacity. Haley's text came just before midnight. "Hey Mom, can you handle the final catering deposit for next month? It's only like $2,000. Gerald's life insurance should cover it, right? You're the best." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I did something I'd never done in 34 years of motherhood. I deleted it. Not out of spite, but clarity. And I understood finally that silence wasn't kindness. Silence was permission. I sat in Gerald's old recliner, the one he used to nap in with a book open on his chest. The house creaked around me in the quiet way it always did. I thought of how hard we'd worked to build a stable life. A life meant to carry me safely into old age. Instead, I was bleeding it dry, one ungrateful request at a time. No more. By morning, I had a list, a real list. First, call the credit card company, report unauthorized charges, freeze the account, begin the dispute process. Second, call the bank, revoke Travis's access to my checking and savings accounts, cancel the debit card he'd been using like an allowance. Third, call my lawyer, Janet Morrison, the same woman who'd helped me settle Gerald's affairs. I needed to revise my will. It wasn't revenge I wanted, it was protection. Because if my children only saw me as useful when I was giving, then it was time they learned what happened when I finally stopped. The love I'd offered freely for decades had been mistaken for obligation. That misunderstanding ended today. By 9 a.m., I'd made all the calls. The credit card was frozen. The bank confirmed that Travis's debit card would stop working by noon. Janet scheduled me in for a 4 p.m. appointment to begin the will revision process. And I felt lighter than I had in years. That peace lasted until 10:37 a.m. when my phone rang. Haley. I let it go to voicemail. Then again, and again. On the fourth ring, I answered. Mom, thank God. Something's wrong with your card. The florist called and said the payment didn't go through. I know, I said calmly. The card has been frozen. A pause. What? Why? Because I didn't authorize $17,000 of wedding expenses. Another pause. Then came the voice I knew too well, the sugary, coaxing tone she used as a teenager when she wrecked the car or failed a test. Mom, come on, we can fix this. Just call them and explain it's all a mistake. It's not a mistake, I said. You used my card without permission. You said I could use it for emergencies? A wedding is not an emergency, Haley? But the vendors, if we don't pay, will lose everything. You're really going to ruin your only daughter's wedding? That line, that guilt-soaked plea, don't you love me enough to fix it? I want you to have a beautiful wedding, I said, but I want you to pay for it yourself, like adults do. She went silent. I could hear her breathing, seething, trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. You're being unreasonable. Possibly, I said, but I'm also being clear. I hung up. By the time I got home from the hardware store with new locks in hand, Travis's car was already in the driveway. I walked in to find Tasha blending a smoothie with fruit from my fridge, her crystals spread out across my dining table. Travis looked up from his phone. Hey, something's wrong with my debit card. I placed my purse on the counter. No, Travis, it's working exactly the way it should. He blinked. What's going on? And Haley's freaking out. I closed your access to my bank accounts, I said evenly. And I'm aware of your sister's situation. Tasha laughed nervously. Martha, you scared us. We thought maybe you had a stroke or something. No, I said, walking toward the door with the new locks in hand. I'm just waking up. That's all. I had the new locks installed by mid-afternoon. The old keys dropped into a mason jar I tucked deep in the kitchen drawer. It felt symbolic, like sealing away an old version of myself. At 4 p.m., I sat in Janet Morrison's leather-scented office, laying everything out with calm precision, the unauthorized charges, the years of financial codependency, the emotional erasure. Janet listened without judgment, only occasionally scribbling notes. This could constitute elder financial abuse, she said, matter of fact. I don't want to press charges, I told her. I just want them to understand the rules have changed. Then we'll make that clear in your will, she replied. By dinner time the house felt quiet, but not the hollow, grief-filled quiet I'd grown used to since Gerald passed. This was different, intentional, clean. As I opened a bottle of wine and reheated some leftover soup, there was a knock at the back door. It was the woman from 2 houses down, the one with the roses and the perfect front garden. She held a casserole dish and offered a tentative smile. I'm Karen Delaney. I live in the White House with the red shutters. I hope I'm not intruding, but I noticed some shouting earlier. Then a car sped off. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. For a second, I considered brushing it off with a polite lie. Then I surprised myself. Actually, I said, I'm not okay, but I'm working on it. Karen lifted the dish. I made too much lasagna, and eating alone gets old. I found myself smiling. Come in, I just opened a bottle. We ate together at the kitchen table, Gerald's table, talking about Rosa's recipes and adult children who forget that mothers are people too. I told her everything, and she listened the way real friends do, not with advice but with presence. When she left, she squeezed my hand and said, Next time you're coming to my porch. For the first time in years, I believed there might actually be a next time worth looking forward to. The siege resumed the next morning. I opened the blinds to find Haley's car in my driveway. She was sitting on the porch steps, makeup smudged, hair undone, clutching a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold. I took my time getting dressed, made toast, let the kettle whistle. Finally at 8:30 I opened the door. "Mom," she croaked, "I've been here since 5. "You look exhausted," I said, stepping onto the porch. "I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. The wedding's ruined, and I don't understand why you're doing this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," I said softly. "I'm just no longer doing things for you." She blinked. "The venue canceled, yesterday, when the payment didn't go through." I said nothing. Haley sat beside me on the bench Gerald built. She was still my daughter, and I still loved her, but something had shifted. She didn't look like a child anymore. She looked like a woman facing the edge of her own consequences. "I know I messed up," she murmured. "I shouldn't have used your card. I was just overwhelmed." "Overwhelmed," I repeated. "So overwhelmed that you forgot to invite me to your engagement dinner?" "That wasn't me," she said quickly. "That was David's family. It was small, just immediate family." "I'm your mother, Haley, your immediate family." She looked away. "When did I become the person it was okay to leave out?" I asked. "When did you decide I was only good for paying bills, not for being present?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought you wouldn't want to come." "That's not the truth. That's what you tell yourself so you don't have to feel guilty." She covered her face with her hands. "Fine. I messed up. I was selfish. I used you. But I'm here now. I'm apologizing. Doesn't that mean something?" "Depends," I said. "Are you sorry for what you did or just sorry that it didn't work?" She dropped her hands, mouth opening to respond, but no words came. "I love you," I continued, "but love doesn't mean never setting boundaries, and forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened." "So what, you're just cutting me off? You're going to let me crash and burn?" "No," I said gently. "I'm going to let you learn how to stand up." There was a long silence between us. "What if I can't?" she asked, voice trembling. "Then you'll get back up, the way I did, the way every woman has to sooner or later." She stood, shaky and unsure. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this." "That's okay," I said. "I didn't do it for your forgiveness, I did it for mine." She walked down the steps without saying goodbye. And I let her go. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, no one knocking on my door asking for keys or money or favors. The silence was so unfamiliar, it felt almost luxurious. Then, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, David knocked. I opened the door to find him standing there, a man who looked as though he hadn't slept much either. His shirt was wrinkled, his expression tight, but there was no hostility, only something that looked like responsibility. "Hi, Mrs. Langston," he said. "I hope this isn't a bad time." "Not at all," I said, gesturing him inside. We sat on the porch, the spring breeze moving gently through Gerald's rose bushes, which I'd finally begun tending again. David reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Inside was a cashier's check for $8,500. "I can't accept this," I said immediately. "Yes, you can," he replied. "Half the wedding charges were for me too, the venue, the catering. Even if I didn't know where the money came from, I still benefited, and I want to make it right." I studied his face. There was no performance in it, just sincerity, regret, integrity. "Did Haley send you?" He let out a humorless laugh. "She doesn't even know I'm here. We haven't spoken since I called off the wedding." My eyebrows lifted. "You called it off?" "I did," he said. "After you froze the card, I started asking questions. Real questions. About money. About your absence from the engagement dinner. About what she told me and what she didn't." He looked down at the check in my hand. "I love her. I really do. But I realized I don't know if she's ready to love anyone the way love requires. Truthfully, honestly, without expecting someone else to carry the weight." I didn't say anything. I just nodded slowly. "I'm sorry for what she did," he added quietly, "and for not seeing it sooner." That was the first time in years someone had apologized to me without a follow-up request. No strings, just dignity. And for that, I was deeply grateful. That evening, just as the sun dipped below the rooftops, I saw Haley's car pull into the driveway again. She wasn't alone this time. A young woman climbed out of the passenger seat, probably her college roommate, Melissa, if I remembered the name correctly. They stood at the bottom of my porch steps, awkward and uncertain. "Mom," Haley called, "we need to talk." I opened the door but didn't step outside. "Good evening, Haley," I said, then nodded to her friend. "Hello." "This is Melissa," Haley said quickly, as if trying to move past introductions. "Look, I know you're upset, but things have gotten out of control. David's gone. The wedding's canceled. I'm staying on Melissa's couch. I need to come home." There it was. The old assumption that no matter how bad things got, I'd always be the backup plan, the safety net, the emotional airbag. "No," I said simply. Haley blinked. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean this isn't your home anymore. That door closed when you chose to leave me out of your life, but still expected me to fund it." Melissa shifted awkwardly. "Maybe I should wait in the car." "Maybe you should," I agreed. Haley's shoulders dropped the moment her friend left. "You're really doing this?" she asked. "You're going to let your daughter be homeless?" "You're not homeless, you have a job, a degree, options. What you don't have is unlimited access to me anymore." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "What do you want from me? An apology?" "I want understanding," I said. "I want you to know the difference between saying I'm sorry I used your card and understanding how deeply it hurt me that you thought you could." "I already said I was sorry." "You listed what you did. That's not the same as being sorry for why you did it." She looked down at the steps. "I don't understand what you want me to say." "That tells me everything I need to know." Her voice rose. "So that's it? You're cutting me off? You're going to die alone just to prove a point?" I almost laughed. "That's the difference between us, Haley. You think consequences are punishment. I think they're necessary." She stepped back, face hardening. "You're not the person I thought you were." "No," I said, "I'm finally the person I used to be before I let everyone else rewrite me." Haley didn't say goodbye, just turned and walked down the driveway. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't chase her. I went back inside, poured a glass of water, and sat in Gerald's chair. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. 3 weeks later, I was in the garden, hands deep in soil, when Karen's voice floated over the fence. "You've got new blooms coming in," she called. "You've been busy." "I guess I have," I said, brushing dirt from my palms. Busy, that was one word for it. In 21 days, I'd revised my will, cleared out old accounts, and created a life that felt, for the first time, like it actually belonged to me. The credit card company had ruled in my favor, $17,000 reversed. No charges filed against Haley, but no access restored either. Travis had stopped texting after I didn't respond to his last passive-aggressive meme. David's check was deposited into a new account, one in my name only. Most importantly, the house was still, not empty, not quiet in a sorrowful way, just peaceful. Karen and I had started having coffee every morning, some days on my porch, some on hers. We talked about books and birds and why it took us both too long to stop being afraid of our own boundaries. That morning, she brought a flyer from the local library. "They're looking for literacy volunteers," she said. "I thought of you." So I signed up. It felt good to be wanted again, but this time for my mind. My time, not my money. That afternoon, I sat by the living room window, Gerald's window, where the sun spilled in, and painted the hardwood floor gold. I looked out at my roses and thought of him, what he would have said, what he would have done. I think he'd be proud, not just of the boundaries I finally set, but of the peace I finally allowed myself to have. My phone buzzed with a text from Karen. "New widow from the library wants to join us for coffee tomorrow. I think you'll like her." I replied, "Can't wait." Then I set the phone down, picked up my book, and let the light wrap around me like a blessing. If this story moved you, share it. If it reminded you of your own strength, comment. And if you're building your own peace, like and subscribe. You matter not for what you give, but for who you are. Don't forget that.